Welcome back to our listeners. In our previous episode with Michael, we talked about what his journey was like with him and his son leading up to coming to a residential treatment center and having to go through many different options. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what it's like to be in a residential treatment center, what his healing journey was like, especially at Discovery Ranch. So thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So we started to go down that road in our last episode of showing up at Discovery Ranch. Mm-hmm. Let's pick up from there. So you talked about he met with Chris Brown. At this point,
that was in April of the year that he actually came.
Yeah.
Because we did a visit at first.
You did a visit
I wanted to bring him out here to see it because he was still resistant to wanting to go to a program, and I wanted him to make an informed no.
Yeah.
If his decision was no, I'm like, fine, but we're going to go out there, and I want you to just see it because what Discovery Ranch offers is very attractive to me as a parent. You know, from if I could create a lifestyle for my son that he otherwise would never experience. I think Discovery Ranch has done a great job of putting that together. But, we got out here and visited, and he said no. And fast forward, to December of that year, and all the circumstances said you really have no other choice. So he said, yeah. He bought in to enough.
Well, so what was it like for you, having been through this really long journey, to drop him off at Discovery Ranch and head home? Was that hard? Was that easy?
I'll come to that.
Okay.
A couple of things I'd like to say. As a parent leading up to, I did share that practically speaking, no other program was willing to accept my son because of his history with aggression. Taking that off the table, if that were not really in the mix, which it was, but to be truthful, it still was my choice. My experience with Greg McGarry and the team, not just in person, but over the phone and talking about the program and the process from a administrative and practical perspective, the opportunity to talk to other parents, speak to one other educational consultant, just as a backup to the ed consultant we were working with at the time, who was really wonderful. So figuring out the financial aspect of it, interfacing with, I think we talked, no, I haven't spoken with Bree, but the fact that not just the clinical and lifestyle and day-to-day life and support that my kid was going to get, all the things that are around it that a parent has to go through and think through and feel through. And I had looked at it, I had already been to a couple of programs and spoken to many others. The financial aspect, the clinical team, the academic team, not experiencing it, but it was very appealing to me. So
I'd love to touch on real quick, before you move ahead, that you really did your research. I know that some parents don't always have the luxury and the time to do that. Sometimes they're in such crisis that it's like we've got to make decisions and act fast. But if you do
it's
have
a good choice. It's still a good choice.
Oh, it still is a good choice. Yeah. But being able to visit a program, meet with a team, having a third party validation, right? Like saying, yes, we know this program. And looking at all the different aspects, like you really, really did your homework, even during such a difficult time. And I think that's so important for parents to hear, like the steps you can take if you have that ability.
And to your point, I had the time, and this is important. I made the time. I had to.
I love that.
I made the time. We're not going out to buy a pair of shoes. We were making a decision to fly our son 3/4 of the way across the United States and put him into the hands of strangers, albeit strangers that come with a reputation. But these aren't people that we've known for life. It's not family. It's not friends.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that family and friends are any help.
Sometimes they're not help.
Sometimes they're not at all. A lot of times, I should say.
So we were talking about having to make that choice leading up to Discovery Ranch, him buying in and saying, okay, this is my last only option. And really,
yeah, it was the only option, but again, taking that off the table, it would have been the option of the ones available that were even potentials.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and
just on paper, and talking my experience with the people, the individuals that I interface with, Greg McGarry,
who's the admissions director.
Yeah, he's the guy who he's holding the hands of parents.
Yeah.
Making the decision for DR, and helping the parents make the decision on whether this is the right program for them, and it's a good fit. And as it turns out, it was a really good fit for our son. Discovery Ranch, they have a subspecialty in what they do and the kinds of kids that they deal with neurodivergent, and that at that time had become it moved to the forefront of why our son was behaving the way he was behaving. And now in hindsight, because that diagnosis triggered me to take my passion, because I'm a sponge, and I started to read and dive into and understand, well, what does that mean? And really began to understand, at least I began to have a more functioning understanding of why my son was the way he was. He's not a bad kid. This is what happens with neurodivergent kids. This is how they experience life. And when they sit in this defense mode, the emotional funnel, and they get down into defense mode, the only way to get them, it's very difficult to get them out and help them regulate. Anyway, I may be going off.
No, you're not. Actually, I think this is a good point for our listeners, because when you have a child who's neurodivergent and on the spectrum,
it's a very specialized approach to help kids like that. It's not a typical. And I can say this because one of the programs that my son went to was quoted as being specialized in it, and they weren't. They had one therapist, and my opinion, Discovery Ranch is more of an expert on them, particularly with the umbrella of Chris Brown. I think the other therapist is Chris Wilson, who helps with the neurodivergent. Anyway, the success is in, it happened. We had success.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it's so unique. If you are a parent listening who has a child on the spectrum who is neurodivergent, who has behavioral issues in regards to aggression, it can feel so alone and isolating and challenging, and shameful and embarrassing, right? Because it's like, how do we handle that?
Yeah,
right?
part of the kids that are neurodivergent are going into defense mode.
Yeah,
their fight-flight nervous system is activated.
Yep.
From their perspective,
and it's not matured.
Right, exactly. Right. But from their perspective, they're sitting in front of, they're about to get eaten by a lion.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's going on inside of them. That blew my mind. I mean, are you kidding me? No, that's what was going on in your son. Your son was standing in front of a lion who's about to eat him, or a bus is about to run him over.
They see red all the time.
That's why it was impossible for you as a parent sometimes, not just because of where he was, but there's an inherent parent-child conflict. Every parent and child, and it's to varying degrees, there's a conflict. Mm-hmm. It's inherent in your relationship. It exists. And taking that piece, coupled with kids that are neurodivergent that get into defense mode, and my son's passion and will, like, I'm going to frickin' win, it was impossible to get this kid to get out. And, how I as a parent didn't revert to beating him, it befuddles me. I don't know how I did it, because I was beaten as a child. But you can't imagine how frustrating it is with this kid. They won't get in the car. They won't put their pants on. All they want is a snack. I want it. And this kid could argue in circles for 20 minutes for a bag of trail mix and win.
Well,
and show me a parent that could do that day after day after day and not give in.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention another layer of we live in a world that's not structured for kids whose brains are wired this way.
No, not at all. We're the exception.
Yeah.
And I say we because I know I am too.
Yeah.
I can only because I learned through my son and his experience.
Well, so if you're a parent listening and being like, oh my gosh, that's my kid, I can resonate with that. And to realize like, oh, no program's going to take my child because of these issues. Like that's a really scary, vulnerable place to be. So to find a place like Discovery Ranch to be like, not only are they truly equipped for it, they're going to take my child and they have things in place to keep them safe.
And safe when they go into crisis, get them stable and then bring them back to the program. So the smart kid like my son, who knows if he acts up enough, he'll get kicked out and come home. It ain't going to happen. Yeah. That's off the table. Yeah. And that was really key for my son. Very key. December of 22, we hopped on a plane and flew out here. Packed him up and flew out.
And what was it like going home without him?
I think I was, I was numb.
That's fair.
I was a little dissociated. I know myself because on my healing journey, I'm an extraordinarily high functioning dissociated person, or had been. I could,
considering
because
your
I
history,
become overwhelmed and I would just leave my body, but I learned how to function and just get stuff done. I would just push it down and get done. So that's where I was with him. And he, thank goodness, because, I had been here before with him. And we get driving to where we're going, and that's when it starts to escalate. And I've had to pull off the road because he's like beating the dashboard. He's got to, rip the seat or something like that. But he stayed regulated. We got on the plane. We got him out here. I brought him out, and I remember dropping him off. We had a big bag of stuff, and they dumped it out and started sorting through it. You probably know this as a clinician, but I know Chris Brown too. Memories aren't, we don't form memories when we're dysregulated and we're in fight or flight. And I know that because I don't have my memory of that day is not super clear.
Yeah.
But I'll come back to answer your question, particularly after I would visit him and so on and so forth. But because I had a friend come with me just to be there. So it was me, my friend, and my son. And we dropped him off, and we flew home. And so as a parent, I'm sure parents who have gone through this, if they're listening, there's this indescribable exhale and sigh of relief. Woven in with, what did I just do? There's relief because you just want it to end. And then the flip side of that is that my son's now in Utah, and he's not coming home for a while.
Definitely mixed emotions with guilt, shame, relief, maybe feeling guilty that you feel relief, right? And you don't have your child.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I felt guilty about feeling relieved. I had been through enough at that point where, I just wanted it to end. I needed a break, especially after what had happened leading up to Discovery Ranch and having to call 911 to have them have cops come and watch your son wrestled to the ground and taken off in handcuffs. It was a welcome relief. And I don't apologize for it. I needed it.
I just... That's heart-wrenching.
Can't imagine. But he was there.
So,
and I had arrived at this place, and his mom had arrived at this place where we were going to just trust that it was the right place for him. It felt like in all that chaos in me, some part of me felt like, it just feels like the right thing. All the circumstances aside, it felt right to me.
Really trusting that process.
Yeah. And of course we were, we started, I had met Chris, I knew him, and we're starting on this, this journey of beginning to have weekly family therapy, reports. We had access to Chris, and his cell phone, text, If we needed to speak to him or if we needed to speak to us, it was open and regular, not scheduled.
Yeah.
The family therapy is scheduled once a week. We're going to get on a call. We're going to have a video call with our son. Chris is on he would bring our son in.
So you got to see him.
Mom and I would be, and we got to see him, and, same story, his routines.
Yeah.
Get on. When am I coming home? When do I get out of here? How long am I going to be here? It was classic. And then Chris, our son, would actually, I think, forgive me if I get the order off, but we spent time with Chris Brown first, the therapist, and Chris was on with us for another time. So I think it started with Chris Brown, and he would prep us and coach us, and we talk, about our grown-up parent stuff, and then our son would come on. So he helped prepare us for what was going to happen, and we had been there before with our son. So
it wasn't your first rodeo.
Yeehaw!
Were there times where he did try to get kicked out of the program?
Yes.
Or
oh yeah, I'm not privy to the data directly, but indirectly. The leadership of one of the other programs my son went to subsequent to DR came down to see him.
Oh, really?
And got the full 9411 on my son. And they indicated that our son had more documented restraints and issues than any other kid in the history of DR. I don't know that for a fact, but I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son set a few records. On both sides of the spectrum, and and we'll get to the more positive stuff, as we travel down the road, because there is a happy ending to the story. So it was as expected, and I don't. Coming back to the transparency of information.
Yes, please.
Anything we wanted to know, and there's an agreement. Between Discovery Ranch and the parents that certain issues that come up are mandated to be reported to the parents. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I think it was December. It was in January, end of January. Yeah, he damaged the couch. We got the call.
Okay.
Your son damaged the couch, and of course my first thing is, now I got to pay for another couch, and they're like, no. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, no, that's not how we handle it here. The parents don't take care of it for the kids. I was like, well, what happens? He will be required to work restitution and pay for the repair himself. I was like, shut up. I don't know if you know that, but that's what they did to my son.
Yeah.
And I
don't know if I knew that detail.
I remember
awesome.
The moment I was like, that's what his mom and I couldn't get him to do. The other programs didn't even try.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned, he did.
That's so cool.
And he worked off whatever it cost to fix that couch. And I remember, asked him the things, he was talking about feeding the calf. I think the layers of impact that the requirement of the boys that come to Discovery Ranch to adopt the calf and begin to take care of them, the layers of positive support that gives kids that I can't imagine they're going to get anywhere else, because they're coming out of family systems where they've been in crisis. But they're required to take care of this calf. They have to get up at 6, and they have to feed this calf at 6, 12, and in the evening, whether it's raining, snowing, and
blizzard.
And I don't know the specific details of how they do that, particularly with my son, who's defiant and very hard to get going in a direction. Mm-hmm. But Chris Brown and the team somehow, but he did it every day. And then began to interface with the other boys where, like, if a boy had to do something at noon, Chris would cover for that kid. Hey, Chris, I can't feed my calf at noon because I got to go do this. Can you cover for me? He would do that. And he learned to help take responsibility and outsource that when he couldn't do it with the other boys as well.
Yeah.
That's an aspect of this, of the program. And he began to, the boys and the neurodivergent, they can be very noisy, very loud, and very disruptive. And when they move from a place of regulated, particularly to, really intensely dysregulated, my son began to help coach and hold space and help these kids move out of dysregulated to a more regulated space as he moved through the program. So the real turning point was probably, December, January, February. His mom thinks it was around the couch incident, February, March. We were here for Parents Weekend in February. It was shortly after that. So I think it was March of 23. That's when there was this, he was turning, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
The restraints, the outbursts, the defiance was beginning to fall off. And understand, the psychiatrist at Discovery Ranch had suggested adding a low dosage of an additional medication, which was going to help give him that time to move through process, not go from 0 to 100 in defense.
Yep.
So that
slow
that
it
would
down.
Right.
So he could make that choice to say, wait.
Right. And see, this is the magic of RTCs, because these kids are in an environment where they're in life. There's no family dynamic. So that nonsense.
Well, there is, but not right in their
Not
face.
the same as the family of origin.
Yes.
It's different. I'm not an expert, but I'll argue to the death around that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
There is a family dynamic because we fall into that, but it's not the family of origin dynamic. And they're in life situations and they're experiencing life differently but similarly, and they're having experiences. They're taking care of the calf. There's horsemanship, and then there's the academics, and stuff comes up. The difference is they've got these staff members around them all the time where they can stop, take a break, process through the feelings and the emotions, and discuss and unpack what just happened and learn. And that's what happens at RTCs. That's the magic. And at DR, the frontline staff, in my opinion, of all the programs I've seen, are a different breed. They're just different people. And I think the success of a program, in my opinion, a lot of it rests on the frontline staff.
Oh,
and they're really good kids.
Having been a frontline staff and having to be in the trenches
makes all the difference.
Yeah, you're the one day in, day out. Well, one thing too to add to that magic is, and success is that it's not that you're not just a parent who's on 24/7. Right? They get to take their breaks.
They can tap out.
They get to support.
I'm sorry to say, but my tap out was
yeah, exactly.
It was.
Yeah, and so they have that ability. Plus, they have the training from therapists. I remember being a staff at programs and knowing to have the interventions, be able to see, okay, this kid's trigger point is this. This is how to intervene. This is so I could see oh, the kid's dysregulated. I need to pull them out. Having that skill set, that training. And Chris is incredible with his staff to teach them, and weekly he trains them weekly with his staff. If
you ever want me to do a commercial for Chris Brown, I'm one, and that's with great love.
Unpaid.
I'm being a little funny.
Yeah.
He's a magician. He is. His value to that program is invaluable. So so Clint, if you're watching this, or Matt
Chris.
Childs,
we have actually had him on the podcast before, talking about how he works with the boys.
Oh, I do.
Yeah,
and the way his mind works really resonates with mine, because I get it instantly with him. He has a way of talking about it, and he's an expert with kids that are neurodivergent. He gets them.
Well,
he's a whisperer. He really is.
He really is. I've worked with those kids specifically, and I've talked and been to lots of trainings, but I've never heard someone really articulate it as well as Chris in my time being a therapist.
He helped us a lot as parents too, because he comes from a place of understanding and perspective. With people who don't speak the language of and have a working understanding of what goes on inside of a neurodivergent kid, and he helped us as parents at where we were presenting as parents. And you there's parent weekends and that are structured specifically for the parents to come to DR.
Yep.
Go through workshops, and we did that every time.
Well, let's talk about your healing journey, because when you do bring
I don't think we have enough
I know,
time.
we got to touch on it just a little bit.
Yeah.
What did you do to start healing for yourself? Because it's not just, I'm going to drop my kid off at a residential treatment center and fix him. It's now I got to start looking in the mirror and looking at what I need to change and how I can heal.
My question is, okay, so why is my son in my life? There are no mistakes. What is he showing me that I need to take a look at? For me personally, I have very, very little recollection of my childhood. And it was very, very difficult, physically abused, emotionally.
So
Yeah, my dad was a rageaholic, alcoholic, and my mom was a classic codependent. She's a great woman. It's like we had this public life and then the private life at home.
Yeah.
No, I can't imagine anyone really knows what happened in our household. So my son, I think that we come into each other's lives for reasons and purposes that go beyond our conscious awareness. There are no mistakes, there just isn't. So why is my boy here? And he was here to show me what I was like as a kid, because I was smart, and scared and defensive. And, so I started looking at him and saying, okay, and finding myself in him. And every time I looked, it was there. And it helped me to understand and appreciate him more. And it also gave me an opportunity to look back on my upbringing, the experiences I had as a kid that were still inside of me, that were coming up in relationship with him. I wasn't getting angry.
Those wounded parts of
but that's
ourselves.
why I was getting pissed with him.
Yeah.
Or why I would be afraid and anxious to have a conversation with this kid. It was about reparenting myself, not to be, too clinically it's a clinical platitude, but I don't mean it that way. That's literally what I was doing. And he was there to help show me aspects of myself that I hadn't yet looked at. And I spent a lot of time in therapy. It was a good decade of my life during the 90s was really about this, meaning me and my journey and understanding myself and how I became who I was. My son came into my life and in my world, and he chose me and I chose him because he was taking me to the next level. And it was a really hard one and difficult, but it was a poignant one. And he was a real mirror for me.
Again, you're touching on this humility piece that I just love for our listeners to hear, because it's so hard to get to that place.
Whoever says it to us.
Yeah.
I mean, who grows up in a family where a mom or dad or even a friend or a priest or, somebody says to you, people are in your life because they're reflecting you back to you.
One of the things that bug and piss you off the most and trigger you is probably what you need to work on.
Well, no, not probably.
No, you're right.
If I'm pointing a finger at Eden, how many fingers are pointing back at me? I learned that in the 12th step.
Yeah.
I never forgot it. And it blows people away when I say this to them that are not in the clinical world, but I'm pissed off because he cut me out. No, I'm not pissed off because I'm pissed off because that person is showing me something inside of myself that I'm not willing to look at. And the only way for me to feel okay about myself is to make it about them. No, it's about me. And I take that to heart. He was taking me to a place inside of myself on my journey of self-awareness and getting to know myself that I hadn't been ready for, and now I was. And I began to see how I was rescuing him. I was addicted. That was my addiction. I'm a rescue addict. And I don't mean that flippantly. I mean that literally. That my definition, and I was an addictions counselor, and the definition of an addiction is is a behavior or an impulse that we move towards. Mm-hmm. And in the moving towards that, to enact it and to get whatever it is that we think we're going to get from this impulse, whether it's sex or drugs or booze or shopping or work, whatever it is, we move to that impulse and embrace that impulse and act it out. And in that action, we forget about everything. We forget about everyone we love. We forget about every agreement we have. We forget about everything that's really important to us when we otherwise are not. In that moment, it all goes away. And we do that. That's my definition of addiction. And that's what happened. That's what was going on for me. I didn't want to look at how painful it was for me to go back to another level inside of myself around what was still inside of me based on my upbringing.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head, is that it's that impulse that helps you cope with those really uncomfortable
I want to get out of me. I want to get away from me.
Quick. Like path of least resistance.
I'm going to fix you so I don't have to feel.
Yeah. So I love this, because when I ask parents this question, our typical answers are, I went to therapy, I did self-care, I reached out for support, but you took it to a whole nother level that I don't know if a parent has really reached. I had to look at my child, realize what things were reflected back to me that I needed to work on. And that's huge. If I could get every parent there that I worked with, to be able to look in the mirror and look at their child and realize like what work they needed to do, then I knew there was 100%, and I'm not saying this flippantly, but 100% hope for this family to heal and move up forward and have a bright future.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. There has to be a willingness, however slight.
Yeah.
A Course in Miracles, which is an incredible work that has been one of the foundation cornerstones of my journey in life. Willingness, however slight, constitutes a miracle. There is no order of miracles, and I'm not trying to be, but it's important it only takes a little bit. You don't have to crack yourself open and say, and sincerely and authentically give up. It just takes a little willingness. And with that little willingness, I believe, and I've seen this as the evidence in my life, is that whatever the mystery of life is that runs life, that we don't see and pay attention to, moves in with a solution and an answer. But it takes the willingness.
Yeah, that humility.
And for whatever reason, whoever I am and why I'm here, that's the drum that I've been beating. Work is not my life is my work. That's why I'm here. And asking the question, why is my son here in my life? He's not here, just to go through life. And a life unexamined is not worth living. I'm sorry, it's just not.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just not. If you're not looking at your life,
and you're not looking at yourself,
you're not going to be looking at this podcast. You're just not.
Yeah. Well, this leads me to my next thought I'm having is, so you had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with yourself. So did that help?
Well put, yes.
Your son, did that help you be okay with your son being uncomfortable? Because
yes,
when we go back to look at the motto of Discovery Ranch is there's strength in the struggle. So that means you got to be uncomfortable you got to be comfortable with your son being
my challenge was
in that struggle.
My challenge and that was the turning point for me. My challenge was I was so unaware of how uncomfortable I was. I normalized what it was like to be me, and was a very high functioning coper, alcohol. I didn't use drugs, but I loved to party, and that was one of my coping mechanisms. And as it began to him as the mirror, he's showing me. If that's true, why am I so uncomfortable? Why does he scare me? I was afraid of him. That and a couple other things, what's that all about? And that led me to, I'm running from, I wanted to, I identified this, that if I came home from work and I was in a very high stress, profession, and I chose it and I loved it. And then, of course, too much of a great thing is overwhelming. And I come home overwhelmed. I just wanted to get away from him. I couldn't be around him. It was hard. And I was like, what is that? Why do I? And that began this path and this journey down of seeing how uncomfortable I was with myself and what was behind that. And to answer your question, did that facilitate or play a part in changing my relationship with my son? it saved it. How, until and unless I was willing to explore myself and find a path to reconciling or healing, if you will, what was going on inside of me, my relationship with my son wouldn't progress. It wouldn't go anywhere. He was doing it, and I did it. And his mom did it too. I want to offer her credit too. Yeah. She doesn't approach it like I do, and that's okay. No one's supposed to be like me. I'm me. That's who I am. But seeing her and her relationship with him and how it's changed, I see the changes in her too. But that's the kernel. That is the foundation of the beginning of the healing journey.
Yeah. Well, I love this. This is just such a unique aspect of the journey of having your child at a residential treatment center. Isn't just talking about the program and the how many times you did therapy and things like that. It's am I willing to change myself and create a different family system, create a different dynamic between my child and I, their mom and I, whoever, to allow real growth.
Unless a parent is willing to approach and not right away. You can't get there from day one. You're just like trying to hold your together with whatever's going on with your kid.
Absolutely.
But once a parent starts to question, their inherent curiosity comes out. Why is my kid like this? That will begin it. That's the beginning. There has to be a curiosity. I'm not, it's been said for eons, a life unexplored is, unexamined is really a life worth living. It's not. We have to be curious.
Yeah.
You ask that question, and I subscribe to that. The answers will begin to show up.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And so I did, and I take that to heart.
Well, and I think you can't get to that place until you, get your child in a place that they feel safe.
And life wants to hit you over the head with a 2x4.
When you're in crisis, when you're in fight, flight, or freeze yourself and dysregulated, it's going to be hard to even remotely get there. So getting your child in a place where you feel like, they're safe, they're settled, they're stabilized, then you can take that step back and start that healing process yourself.
Exactly.
So
and that's what the family therapy is there for. It's there for the parents, and you now have the time and the space. You're not dealing, you're not in constant and consistent crisis. Yep. And that's where it begins.
When was your son's turning point?
It was around March.
And what did that look like?
Well, I wish I was here to see it, but I didn't have that privilege. It was it's funny. I remember, his mom and I are really good co-parents. I have to say, I got to tell you, our split up. I know it was painful, and we talked about this when we first got together. It's just we didn't belong together, but now that we're apart, we're so much better than we were, as a married couple and as a unit. We didn't belong to. It had gone its course, and it was time for us to be separate. But we're really good together this way. The reports were coming. They began to come that there were fewer and fewer restraints. He's making he bought into this restitution for hitting the couch. And it was, let me finish this because it was like, oh, wow. But 4 years of trauma were always right there. We both even said this to each other. We're just like, it was wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It was celebratory, but we both lived our lives waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Well, yeah, it's that.
When's it going to happen?
Yeah.
Because we've been here before. It was this pattern.
There's a term for this. It's from Brene Brown. I'll have to look it up, but it's a, she's
a good one. I like
she is good. It's like when you're experiencing so much joy, you feel so much vulnerability. It's like, when is the shoe going to drop? Like I can't be in this happiness forever. I know something bad's going to come. Well,
and history has proven that with our son because that's his pattern.
Yeah.
So, but we were happy. We were, he was, he was having some enjoyment in his life. We wanted him to be happy, but he was just miserable wherever he went. But he was beginning to have some joy. He was really buying into the horsemanship program. Dan is another whisperer. Dan is in charge of the horsemanship program. He's actually a horse whisperer. I searched him up. He's got a history and a legacy. And he was beginning to flourish academically. He was all caught up, and then moving ahead. There were just no incidents happening. He was beginning to live a life more consistently regulated than dysregulated like he had.
Well, okay. I'm just now piecing this together.
No,
it's good. This is good. Your son went from having to have everyone control him, right? Like he couldn't control himself. So there had to be this external control. And it really sounds like the switch happened when that pressure was put on him, and not saying that you guys couldn't, but it sounds like
we couldn't. Don't worry. I'm not offended.
Well, and he made everyone have to control him, right? Like because he couldn't do it himself. So once he started to be able to have that pressure to take ownership of the couch, of the calf, of the empowerment, right? To say, no, you can do this. And it's not just your parents who are going to put that pressure, but this whole team, because that's what it took, not just one or two people.
Right. And it was consistent and constant,
especially for a kid on the spectrum.
It was consistent from staff to staff.
Yep.
There was a consistent approach. It wasn't like, Joe handled it this way and Susie handled it that way and Cindy did it in a different way. There was consistency, and it was constant and persistent. Yeah. And with that, coupled with a little medication tweak, and I think, it was the right time in his life. All the secret sauces, the ingredients came together. It was the perfect secret sauce for him to begin to taste what it was like and have an experience of what it felt like to be happy.
Well, that's empowering.
And be happy. And just enjoy.
Confidence.
Go have fun with your calf and the other guys.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And he also, in this piece, from an academic perspective, see, this is, he had lost. Not lost. I believe, and I think you can back me up as a clinician, we all inherently as human beings have a natural curiosity and a desire to learn. His was gone. It was lost in the chaos.
Well, yeah.
He found it again. He started connecting. So he was behind, and then all his academics he was caught up, and then he started going ahead. And he was getting straight A's.
Yeah.
So he found his curiosity and desire to learn as well.
The program I worked at, we found the same thing, that once kids started doing well clinically and started making progress with their mental health, the academic piece started falling in line with that.
Yeah.
That was super consistent with the research and the data we collected with the boys we worked with as well.
He was disinterested. He wasn't, he's a smart kid, he's gifted that way. He was just disinterested. The chaos of what was going on and how he experienced life just quashed it.
Well, and one other thing I want to circle back to is that for our parents listening, and if you have a child who's on the spectrum, you're going to know this, but a child who is on the spectrum and neurodivergent, that consistency is so key, and it being constant, persistent was the word you used.
Yeah.
Because a child who isn't on this, neurodivergent, you only need to touch a hot stove once or twice to realize I don't need to touch that stove again, right?
Neurodivergent kids,
100 times, 50 to 100 times, 1,000. Yeah.
It's got to be the same between Joe and Susie, from day to day or week to week. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've talked about this on previous podcasts, but when you meet one neurodivergent kid, you've only met one neurodivergent kid.
They're all different. Yes.
They're all so vastly different. Yeah. And so that consistency, that persistence, and that teamwork is so huge to finally get that change. And one thing I've seen as a clinician working with kids on the spectrum is once they get it, man, they get it. And it's like really black and white, and they run with it. But it takes that hard work and effort to finally get there.
That describes it very well.
Yeah.
He does. He was characterized as, seeing things, and I see it too. Things were very black and white with him.
Yes.
And neurodivergent kids, gray is like Greek to them.
Yeah.
It just is. And some being in this kind of environment with someone like Chris Brown, who so intimately understands or has the enough foundation to be able to see how individual kids experience neurodivergency and then work with them to help understand gray. Because there is no one fixes all kind of a thing. You said it before. They're all different. And he did a fabulous job, and our son started turning around, and it became consistent.
Yeah,
he was moving up in levels. He was getting his privileges and more and more freedoms.
Were there was it all linear, or was it like 2 steps forward, 1 step back?
That's what's interesting. His was pretty linear.
Was it?
Yeah.
He was ready. It sounds like he was primed at that point then.
You know what? For what he had been through, he should have been.
Yeah, exactly.
He had been through enough crap and enough difficulty.
Not only him, but his parents primed as well, I'm sure. To say the least.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you really want to touch on before we wrap this up on your experience at Discovery Ranch? Any type of the program or hard?
You know, a parent asked me this, I want to say it, you know, because I speak to, I have been asked to be a parent of a graduate available to parents who are considering sending their child to Discovery Ranch. And so I speak to parents once in a while. And, parents, particularly the last one, he asked me, so what did you not like about DR? Where did they fall? Or do they not meet your expectations? And as ridiculous as it sounds, I can't come up with one. I really can't. I don't. And it may be a byproduct of that I went in a place where I don't want to say my expectations were low, but I had abandoned expectations and was just kind of blankly hoping that, you know, he would make some progress. That aside, though, because I want to say is that, you know, I think the results have exceeded my expectations, and I just said I didn't really have any. I think I did quietly, but I don't. There's nothing that I had as an experience with DR that was negative. I know, so that's kind of like sad and sounds, you know, canned, but it's not. I really can't think of anything negative. Everything was part of growth oriented and experience. You know, even the coming out here and doing the for parents weekends, they have a structured program for the parents, and they take you through these workshops. Yep. And some of them were okay. You know, if I were like a regular person, yeah, it was kind of dumb, but you know, it was okay. But most of them were like, I was like, holy crap. You know, they did this one where on values, and you're all given this bag and you have to sort through all these values and pick the top 10 that you things that you value. And then you come together and it was so revelatory about, I had, you know, what his values, what did he value?
Yeah.
His mom, what did she value? And we as a group, although we weren't living together, but we would come together for them as a family and work together as a unit, although we didn't live together. And it was really amazing. I learned a lot. I really did. I learned about myself too. But yeah, I find it really odd that I'm remiss to find anything that was like a negative experience.
Well, I feel like you'd be the type of person who wouldn't hold back from sharing any of that.
I'm pretty transparent. Yeah. I call it like I see it.
Yeah.
And if that pissed me off, I'd say so. But no one ever pissed me off. Never had to call Clint, the director. Never even got his number, and I always had the director's phone number because something pissed me off or something seemed inequity or something going on, and I was not shy. Yeah. I've called directors, you know, and
well, I love that about
expressed myself that's responsibly but clearly.
Yes. You know. Well, and your involvement is so key, I think, for listeners to hear that if you're at this stage that you need to search for a residential treatment center, your involvement is 100% key. If not, don't even bother.
Don't bother.
Right?
Well, you know, some parents might, but you need to manage your expectations because they're not going to be long lasting.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to be minimal.
Well, and hopefully at some point you'll be willing to fully jump into the deep end.
That's the difference maker.
Yeah,
from my perspective as a parent. And I think you echo that as a clinician too.
Oh, 100%. Is there anything you'd want to leave our listeners with who may be in your place? Their kid's struggling, they're at their breaking point, they're looking for possibly residential treatment center.
If there's anything that I could do to help them, and you reach out to Tiffany, you're welcome to give them my contact information. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. And I mean that.
Oh, I would 100% believe that.
Yeah, I would rather talk to a parent who's not knowing what to do than like go to work or make money. I mean that sincerely. It's just it's just more valuable to me. It's how I want to spend my time, which is one of the reasons why you didn't have to ask me twice to come out and be part of this. I'm happy to.
Oh man, it's such an honor and so beautiful to hear you share such a part of your soul, and your experience. And be willing to show up for parents, even just through this, who may be really, really struggling and feeling discouraged and at rock bottom where you once were.
Yeah. So. Parents, question the voice that's talking to you about that's saying this is not a good idea. I question where that voice is coming from. Take a look at that. I think that the work that this team does and other teams is invaluable and is undervalued, culturally and societally, unfortunately. But I think that tide's beginning to turn. And if my story helps anyone turn that corner inside of themselves, then that's a win for me. And I'm happy to help anybody. And I mean that sincerely.
Yeah. Well, to end this episode, thank you so much for sharing what it was like while being in treatment. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. In our next episode, we're going to be talking with you, Michael, about what's life been like now that your son's been home. And
that's the icing on the cake.
It is. And I'm excited. And our listeners, please tune in.
I have goosebumps. I can't wait to tell you this. Okay. Well, it's just unbelievable. Anyway, so thank you.
I could talk to you for hours. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.